Good morning and welcome to Fox 29 News Now on this Wednesday morning. It is December the 12th. What you just saw there in the beginning was Michael Cohen, the former personal attorney to President Trump, walking into court. He's to appear before the federal judge today at 11 a.m., so that was his arrival. And we will keep track of that going forward. This is a live look over Reading, Pennsylvania. It's currently around 39 degrees. I'm going to go into some local news here in the Philadelphia area. Developing this morning, we are learning more about a hazmat situation in Bucks County. Steve Keeley was in Warminster this morning with more.
As soon as I ran out, because I thought it was a car accident, they said get back in the house.
We now know from neighbors here in Warminster that it was 2 stun grenades fired from a SWAT team that blew out the front window of this rented Warminster house that was being used to make illegal drugs, a drug lab, and several people were arrested last night.
We heard the police come in. They blew up 2 concussion bombs. They raided the house, and then one by one they were pulling people out of the house.
You hope you're not right about having a meth lab or something like that in your neighborhood, but it was just people always coming and going. You never knew what was going to happen next.
It was crazy. It was.
Did they tell you anything when they got here, the authorities, besides not
Don't come by. We don't know when you can come back. Real professional about it.
All the neighbors thought something was going on with the house a couple months ago, and we would say something to people, law enforcement, and they would say they were not to worry about it because I guess it was under investigation.
So that see something, say something thing applies to the suburbs too.
Yeah, my neighbor Woody said the same thing. You see that on the news, see something, say something. We all said something.
No official word yet from authorities, but neighbors told us they saw something and said something. They all suspected something was going on nefarious at this house, and they called police, who obviously followed up. In Warminster, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News.
Well, the classic Amtrak flipboard in 30th Street Station may be staying for good. There was some controversy where they were going to take it down, but we heard new news in that. Here is Lauren Johnson, live at 30th Street Station.
Hey, well, a lot of people hope that the clicks just keep on happening here at 30th Street Station. That's because the 70s era flipboard, it's really popular, and it might just get an extended stay in the Regal lobby of 30th Street Station. The noisy travel tradition now has Amtrak leaders reconsidering their decision to replace the electromechanical board with a much nicer digital screen. Representative Brendan Boyle tells us he's been urging the transit company CEO to keep the popular display in place in the passenger waiting area. Boyle, whose district includes a chunk of Northeast Philadelphia, says he's a frequent passenger of Amtrak, and the welcome home noise is a welcome sound to so many people. So it does seem like the public outcry is being taken to heart after an announcement that Amtrak was preparing to take the board down.
As long as it's accurate, that's what I care about. Knowing if my train is on time, and if it's not, it should say it. But I can understand that. Like, people are used to hearing the flipping, and it's kind of like a tradition, like almost when you come through here.
To be honest, you can make the facility modern and leave something historic like this.
I guess time happens, things continue to progress. But there is something about that sound that we do like.
Well, the board has helped travelers get to their trains, the tracks, and keep track of delays since the 70s. So maybe some of the old technology can be merged into that new plan. Surely there is a company out there that can make it happen, but there have been no public plans released on the future of what exactly this will look like. But we know change is coming, as it always does. We just don't know when at this point, but we do know many stations all over the country have already started opting for digital displays. New York's Penn Station's one of them. So many are saying that Philly has the last board standing. Now we'll just have to wait and see what happens to this one.
This is a live look over Old City, Philadelphia, where it is 39 degrees and temperatures seem to be going up, which is a great thing. Certainly better than the past 2 frigid days. So the highest, I think, is going to be 52 tonight, and I see some rain, but let's hope not. I'll go through some slides here for you. You can take a look at this week's weather and weather throughout the area. Now I'm going to take you over live to the UN Security Council meeting on nuclear weapons. This is going on live right now, so let's tune in.
Mark Pexton de Boeswerver of Belgium, who will assume the functions of facilitator on 1 January 2019, and to assure him of the Secretariat's full support. I'd also like to thank the coordinator of the Procurement Working Group of the Joint Commission for our continued cooperation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Je remercie Madame Di Carlo de son exposé. Je donne maintenant la parole à Monsieur Serge Christian.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci à Madame Rosemary Di Carlo pour son exposé. Council, on behalf of Federica Mogherini, High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, in her capacity as coordinator of the Joint Commission established by the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA. First, I would like to thank Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez as well as His Excellency Meneer Karel van Oosterom, Ambassador of the Netherlands, who is serving as the facilitator for the implementation of the Security Council Resolution 2231 in 2018 for the excellent cooperation throughout the year. Let me also express my gratitude to our colleagues in the UN Secretariat for the unwavering support and for the excellent cooperation, in particular regarding the running of the procurement channel. I would also like to note my appreciation for their work in the preparation of the latest report of the UN Secretary General on the implementation of the Resolution 2231. Mr. President, as we approach the third year of the implementation day of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, we should remind ourselves of the essence and scope of this agreement. The JCPOA is a nuclear agreement, one that is working and delivering on its goal, which is no other than ensuring the exclusively peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. This third anniversary should also remind us that diplomacy does work, and that international agreements can deliver results even on the most sensitive issues. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed in 13 consecutive reports that Iran continues to implement its nuclear-related commitments. On this, our position remains unchanged. As long as Iran continues to implement its nuclear-related commitments in full, the EU will remain committed to the continued full and effective implementation of the agreement. For us, the non-proliferation benefits of the JCPOA are clear and based on comprehensive scientific analysis and breakout time calculations. The JCPOA has significantly rolled back the Iranian nuclear program and ensures Iran does not acquire material or equipment to develop a nuclear weapon. This is why the JCPOA enjoys and continues to enjoy wide and full support of the broader international community. However, the JCPOA faces considerable challenges following the withdrawal by the United States and the reimposition of sanctions against Iran. The EU and all 28 member states deeply regretted these US decisions. At their last Council meeting of 10th of December 2018, the 28 EU foreign ministers reiterated their full commitment to the continued implementation of the deal as long as Iran continues to implement its commitment in full. The EU also does not see any other credible peaceful alternative. Dismantling the agreement would not only destroy years of diplomatic efforts endorsed by this very body in its Resolution 2231, but would also undermine other key multilateral negotiations in the nuclear field and beyond. While the EU strongly welcomes Iran's continued implementation of its nuclear-related commitments, it is essential that the agreements continue to work for all its participants, including by delivering tangible economic benefits to the people of Iran. This has also been echoed by the other remaining participants of the
Just want to take you quick live over to our Skyfox here in Chester. This looks to be a scene of an accident where cleanup is going on. It's developing, so make sure you stay tuned, stay on top of our Twitter. We'll have all the details to come. Bear in mind, this is live raw footage, so anything you see, it's happening live, so be warned. Looks like firefighters are attempting to get someone out of the vehicle. We'll stay on top of this. Again, just follow us on Twitter. We'll have the latest on there, I promise. I should mention this accident is near Route 202 and Lincoln Highway in Chester. We do believe initial reports say 3 people are trapped, or at least 3 people, multiple people. We're not sure the number. And as you can see right now, fire rescue is trying to rescue these people and get them out of the vehicle safely. We have no word on condition. We don't know what happened, but definitely a devastating scene here. We'll get that picture back up in just a second. Bear with us. For those of you just tuning in, I see you asking what's going on here. This is a dump truck accident on US 202 in Chester County. Crews were working to get some people out of the vehicle there. It appears that they did. This is live raw video, so we just warn you. We don't know any conditions of any of these individuals, and we don't know the extent of the injuries, so just stay tuned. You can check us out on Twitter for all the latest updates and details on this story. And that was the accident in US 202 near Route 30. Looks like the lanes there are closed down. This is Chester County and Whiteland Township, so I definitely avoid that area. So that is that for that. Our chopper's heading home. And I'll take you back over to the UN Council meeting on nuclear weapons.
The report identifies certain elements of Iranian activity which are not in line with the provisions of the resolution, and this gives rise to a very serious concern on our part. On the ballistic issue in particular, France, together with Germany and the UK, expressed its concern on several occasions. I'd like to recall that the missiles in question are technically designed in such a way that they are capable of carrying nuclear weapons, and this is the kind of activity which is not in line with the Resolution 2231, and we collectively call Iran not to undertake this activity. The issue of ballistic transfers towards state and non-state actors, in particular Secretariat conclusions on the ballistic missiles fired by the Houthi, is also a source of serious concern for France. Whether we're talking about Yemen or the Syrian theater, this is also contrary to Resolution 1540 of the Security Council. This is also, which is also an essential element of the international non-proliferation architecture. So let us be clear here, Mr. President. It is essential for regional stability and international peace and security for Iran to immediately cease all of these destabilizing activities. We have already expressed our concern about this, including doing this directly with the Iranian authorities. It's now up to every one of us to very clearly convey this message, and France will continue its demanding dialogue with Iran on this issue. Mr. President, to conclude, I would like to echo the appeal launched by the Secretary General to all of the states, whether they are participants in or not, to ensure that the continuity of GCPOA as a pillar of international and regional peace and security. Please be sure that France worked tirelessly to make sure that this is a robust mechanism and it has demand verification mechanism will remain fully committed here. It is only on this basis that we will be able to build together a long-term strategy in the region, and this strategy cannot be reduced to a policy of exerting pressures and sanctions. It also has to include a firm and frank dialogue with the Iranians on those things which give rise to our concerns. And it is this way that the international community will be able to lay the foundations for a new agreement which will include the framing of the Iranian nuclear issue beyond 2025-2030, frame the Iranian ballistic activity and regional stability. There is no other way to make sure there is lasting stability in the region or to attain the goal of Iran never obtaining nuclear weapons. I thank you.
I thank the representative of France for his statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President. Thank you for scheduling this debate, and we're very grateful to Secretary Pompeo for taking the time to be here today. This debate comes at a very important moment. The world is an unpredictable place right now, and the developments we're going to discuss today risk making it more so. I'd also like to join others in thanking the Under-Secretary General and in thanking the Dutch representative and his team for all the work they have done on 2231. Today's agenda, Mr. President, is the implementation of that resolution. That resolution was an endorsement of the JCPOA, but throughout the negotiations and at the adoption of the resolution, we were clear that the Council was not only addressing nuclear issues, but continuing to impose binding restriction to curb Iran's ballistic missile and proliferation activity because it threatens the region and beyond. And I just want to stress, Mr. President, the point about the ballistic missile proliferation is not solely about nuclear missiles, notwithstanding that there is a link with nuclear capability. Any conventional payload would cause extensive harm to civilians and infrastructure, and member states in the region, Mr. President, will naturally be deeply concerned about being confronted by such a threat from Iran. In itself, it heightens instability in the region, and it heightens the risk of miscalculation. And as Secretary Pompeo said, the international community has been trying to curb this activity since at least 2006. Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to set out the policy of my government towards Iran. We are motivated by three objectives. Firstly, and most critically, to uphold the global non-proliferation regime and prevent Iran achieving a nuclear capability that would threaten the Middle East region and Europe beyond it. Secondly, to constrain Iran's destabilizing actions in the region. And thirdly, to encourage Iran to normalize its economic and diplomatic relations with the region and the West and assume its rightful role as a responsible power, constructively engaged. The United Kingdom participated in negotiations on a nuclear deal with Iran to secure the first of those objectives, and we believe the JCPOA has done so. It remains critical for our national security, and we believe for the shared security of our partners and allies, and I agree with what the French ambassador said on the way forward. We were also clear that the nuclear deal contained elements designed to encourage Iran on a path to normalcy in its trade and diplomatic relations with the outside world. The Secretary-General's report records Iran continues to comply with its nuclear-related obligations, and the IAEA confirmed this in their report of 12 November. We expect this commitment to continue, and we look to Iran to continue to abide by its obligations under the deal in full. So our first objective, Mr. President, continues to be met, and for this reason, the United Kingdom, together with France and Germany, have been working to ensure that Iran continues to receive the economic benefits from sanctions relief agreed as part of the nuclear deal. To this end, in September, we announced the creation of a European special purpose vehicle to help facilitate this. This work continues, and we hope to announce further progress soon. There remains, however, much work to do towards the second objective, the ending of Iran's destabilizing regional behaviour. And no one should be in any doubt, Mr. President, about the strength of our concern and the strength of our commitment to tackle that, and the fact that compliance with the JCPOA, important as it is for all the reasons the French ambassador set out, it is not a licence to engage in destabilising behaviour elsewhere, whether or not that has a nuclear link. Iran cannot, Mr. President, expect to improve its relations with the rest of the world or ensure its economic prosperity and security while pursuing its current path. Business will not invest, and public finances should be spent at home and not diverted to adventurism abroad. The briefing given by the Under-Secretary-General today has been very clear, and the findings in the Secretary-General's report should continue to trouble this Council. As the report notes, the United Kingdom, along with our E3 partners, raised our concerns over recent Iranian ballistic missile launches into Syria in a letter on 20 November. Since then, as the Security Council discussed on 4 December, Iran has test-fired a medium-range ballistic missile with a capability falling under MTCR Category 1. This latest launch, like those referenced in the E3 letter, is inconsistent with Security Council Resolution 2231. Now, Mr. President, we heard a number of arguments when we met before to discuss this issue in consultations. I'm sure we'll hear many of those arguments again today, so I'd like to address them briefly, if I may. Some colleagues have made the point that the language in Resolution 2231, OP7 and Annex B, Paragraph 3, are not binding. The second plank of that argument is that the Council should therefore not concern itself with Iran's behaviour, because we argue it's inconsistent with it. Mr. President, we believe that's an extraordinary, but it's also a flawed argument for two reasons. Leaving aside the question of whether the language is legally binding or not, this Council has the power to make recommendations to Member States with a view to resolving any matter that threatens the maintenance of international peace and security. It is clear that these recommendations should be taken seriously by Member States rather than openly flouted. The call upon Iran to comply with the request not to undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons has a clear purpose, and that purpose, Mr. President, is to reduce international and regional tension. In defying the Council's clearly expressed view, Iran is, to say the least, not contributing to the stability of the region. Rather, she is ignoring the express wishes of this Council. Tendentious arguments which seek to diminish the Council's voice on this serve only to undermine the Council's prerogative and authority and to encourage other states to disregard the resolutions of the Security Council. We should all, Mr. President, be deeply concerned by such irresponsible behaviour. Another fallacious argument, which I'm sure we'll hear today, is that the MTCR is irrelevant, that it is only an arms export regime. Mr. President, the MTCR is itself an important part of international efforts against proliferation. MTCR Category 1, which describes a platform capable of delivering first-generation nuclear weapon, commonly defined as around 500 kilograms minimum, to a distance of 300 kilometers. So it matters that Iran test-fired a ballistic missile with a capability that falls under MTCR Category 1. These missiles are not harmless tools of self-defense. They are a source of concern, and they're included in this resolution because if Iran were to develop a nuclear weapon, these missiles would be its delivery vehicle. They therefore not only threaten the region, but Europe and potentially others beyond. Testing them is provocative, and the Council should respond. Therefore, Mr. President, let me say that we demand Iran cease activity that defies Resolution 2231. We demand that Iran and all Member States fully comply with the resolutions prohibiting the proliferation of missile technology to and from Iran, on which, by the way, there is no doubt that these are indeed legally binding. On our second objective, we note with deep regret but also concern that throughout the region, Iran continues to play a negative role supporting non-state actors that undermine the stability of its neighbours. In Syria, Iran has been the key supporter of Bashar al-Assad's murderous 7-year campaign. Militias funded and controlled by Iran have been integral to Assad's military campaign to retake opposition-held territory, committing gross abuses of human rights in the process. Iran has proactively shipped weapons systems into Syria, inflaming tensions with its neighbours, as well as violating the provisions of Resolution 2231. For example, Mr. President, in just the past week, Israel has had to take action to prevent Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants tunnelling under its borders. These Hezbollah activities are a clear violation of Security Council Resolution 1701, and they are further evidence of Iran's destabilising activity. The United Kingdom condemns the existence of these tunnels. They threaten the security of Israel and Lebanon. The violation of Israeli sovereignty is deeply concerning, and moreover, Mr. President, it takes Iran's destabilising activity literally to new depths. In Yemen, we are watching the ongoing talks in Stockholm carefully, and we welcome the attendance of the Houthi delegation. And I accept, Mr. President, it's important to note that Iran has expressed its strong support for the talks in Sweden. But the situation in Yemen remains of serious concern, and the Secretary-General reports today includes information about ballistic missiles fired at Saudi Arabia by the Houthis, as well as anti-tank and surface-to-air missiles recovered in Yemen. These weapons had characteristics and components consistent with those known to be manufactured in Iran. Mr. President, I have had, in the course of my recent work, I have been to Tehran to discuss many of these issues with the Iranian leadership, and each time I've been clear that this habit of testing weapons that threaten her neighbours, defy the Council by exporting weapons and militias around the regions, makes it very difficult to see how Iran can play a constructive role in her region. And it means that she has no legitimacy when complaining when this Council puts such behaviour on its agenda. Mr. President, I have long said that Iran has legitimate security interests in the region. We recognise that. But the way Iran goes about pursuing those interests is leading to increasing destabilisation and is simply not legitimate in the modern world. A different approach is available to Iran that concentrates on reintegration into the economic community of the world and into the world diplomatic engagement. We support Iran in seeking to benefit from economic development, and we want her to fulfil her undoubted potential as a vibrant economy and an important power. But these are not unconditional goals, Mr. President. Iran can never achieve these objectives without a vital change in approach on the issues I've mentioned here today. Iran needs to take steps to address the concerns of this Council seriously and to recognise that its expeditionary and expansionist security doctrine will only provoke more challenge and lead to greater instability within the region. This is why, Mr. President, the United Kingdom, together with our European partners, we continue to participate in the JCPOA. We will continue to work with everyone to convince Iran to take a radically different approach to the region and help secure for herself a more prosperous future. Thank you, Mr. President.
Je remercie la représentante du Royaume-Uni pour sa déclaration. Et je passe à présent la parole au représentant de la Fédération de Russie.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Выражаем признательность заместителю генерального секретаря Розмари Ди Карло за представление очередного полугодового доклада по выполнению резолюции 2231, которая одобрила совместный всеобъемлющий план действий в отношении иранской ядерной программы. Отмечаем эффективную работу воспреда Нидерландов Карла ван Остерова в качестве координатора в Совете по выполнению
Council facilitator for the implementation of the resolution. We fully share what is stated by the Secretary General when he states that the decision by the United States to withdraw from JCPOA and restore unilateral sanctions are a serious challenge and are not conducive towards attaining the goals in JCPOA and in the Resolution 2231. We also join in with the global appeal launched by the Secretary General to ensure that we preserve this unique agreement, which is of fundamental importance for international and regional security. We fully share the conclusion in the report, which states that the issues which are not within the scope of the agreement should not be used as a reason for its dismantlement. The Russian Federation has warned on many occasions against the attempt to torpedo the JCPOA and expressed their hope that reason will prevail and that the issues of global security and stability will not be held hostage to domestic political processes. Unfortunately, our appeals were not heeded, and we are now facing a paradoxical situation where one member of the Council not only openly refusing to implement Resolution 2231, which it itself approved, but is also trying to punish all other member states for implementing the decisions of the Council and the joint JCPOA Commission. At present, the only way to preserve the agreement is the diligent implementation by all remaining member states of the commitments they voluntarily undertook. In this context, we note that the Secretary General's report is a clear evidence of Iran's unconditional implementation of their commitments on the JCPOA, and this is consistently being confirmed by the IAEA, but also by the UN Secretariat, which, according to the document, has no proof to the contrary. Mr. President, once again, we are compelled to recall that it's unacceptable for the Secretariat to conduct any kind of so-called investigations of potential implementation, 2231 implementation violations without a clear mandate from the Security Council. We're not going to talk about the technical expertise of the Secretariat when they, on components and debris, decide to talk about the technical characteristics of various missiles and hint at their Iranian origin. But we have legitimate questions of the mandate of such specialists about the status of their trips and the authority they have to reach far-reaching conclusions. The desire to use the UN authority in order to help with unsubstantiated allegations of Iran's violations of 2231 is something that we cannot understand. But the representative of the Secretariat themselves state in their report that they only worked with what they were provided with by third countries. The inspection and monitoring activity by the Secretariat, when it's not agreed, regardless of its reason, is something that needs to be stopped once and for all. Still, we insist that the report is not to contain information from open sources, nor reference to information provided individual countries, information unverified or unverifiable information, all the less so when it's not even being given to members of the Security Council. Once again, we'd like to draw the attention of the Secretariat that Item 7 of the Security Council President's note of 16 January 2016 provides for the semi-annual reports on implementing Resolution 2231 as a whole, not its individual parts. We have heard today a lot about ballistic missiles. Let me recall that there is an Item 3 of Annex B of Resolution 2231. The Iran there is called upon not to undertake activities having to do with ballistic missiles which are designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons. Overall, missile launches in general are not banned, and any proof showing that they may have a nuclear component are absent. Mr. President, the United States withdrawal from JCPOA did serious damage to the non-proliferation regime and also the interests of security in the Middle East. It's time to abandon unilateral actions. History shows that they are doomed to failure. But on the other hand, genuine efforts of states to counter regional efforts is something that can provide us with long-term results and help overcome crises and stabilize situations. We think that JCPOA is exactly that kind of a product. It became a key point in our joint work in the region to create conditions conducive to strengthen the general atmosphere of trust. Thanks to it, we had hope of moving towards the implementation of a major goal, namely creating a WMD-free zone in the Middle East. Russia advocates preserving JCPOA. We will launch an appeal not to artificially create situations when some UN member states call other governments of other member states a pariah. Not only is this not helpful in resolving many problems in the issues, it creates new ones. It's obvious that in order to lower the crisis, what we need to do is to pool international and regional efforts, including through effective, inclusive formats with a central role played by the UN and the Security Council. Many of our colleagues in the Council regularly are trying to use the format of our meeting today in order to discuss the so-called regional behavior of Iran, which they depict as though it were the only source of all the woes in the Middle East. At the same time, and given that Iran is ready for a dialogue, what they do not voice is any kind of a substantive proposal on this topic. And sometimes we're left with the impression that the only goal is to further escalate anti-Iran hysteria and to demonize Iran. And in actual fact, what it does is exacerbates the already difficult situation in the Middle East. The Russian Federation advocates for developing a positive and inclusive agenda for the Security Council and the whole international community for the Middle East, and take into account the legitimate interests of all countries in the region, including Iran.
The key moment of our work in the region should be creating such conditions which could lead to improving the general atmosphere of trust. And this is of importance for relations between Arab states, Israel and Iran. Let me recall that already in its resolution 598 of 1988, the Security Council requested the Secretary General to work out together with regional actors on the ways of increasing security and stability in the region. And this is not an easy issue. But work needs to begin in this area, and we stand ready to what we can through contacts with our regional partners. The ultimate goal should be creating such an architecture of regional security which would be truly inclusive in nature and provide for including all of the states in that part of the world. What remains topical is our concept of strengthening security in the Persian Gulf under international guarantees, and this could start by holding a conference with the participation of countries of the region. This could then be broadened to other Middle Eastern countries. On all of these and other aspects, Russia is ready to work together with partners who are interested on the basis of that's open and impartial, without any threats or negative pressure. Mr. President, in conclusion, I would like to once again point out that the Russian Federation remains committed to the unconditional and comprehensive implementation of the provisions of 2231 and JCPOA. Its implementation, despite the U.S. withdrawal, is being continued by all its other participants. I thank you. I thank the representative of the Russian Federation, and I now give the floor to the representative of Sweden.
Merci, Le Président. Thank you very much, and thank you to Secretary of State Pompeo for your presence and for your engagement. I also want to thank Under-Secretary General Di Carlo and Serge for your briefings today, and of course a strong appreciation to our Dutch colleague and his team for the very diligent work you've done on facilitating the implementation of Resolution 2231. Mr. President, this is the fifth briefing on Resolution 2231 during our tenure on the Security Council, and most probably the last. So let me reiterate our principal position on this agenda item. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action is a prime example of finding successful multilateral solutions to collectively shared challenges. The agreement has effectively ensured the exclusively peaceful nature of the Iranian nuclear program and made our world a safer place in that respect. As such, it should also be seen in the broader non-proliferation context. The undermining of that plan of action risks undermining our efforts elsewhere. Together with our EU partners, Sweden continues to strongly support the full implementation of the agreement. We welcome Iran's continued engagement and implementation of its nuclear-related obligations under the plan of action, as reported by the IAEA. I would equally like to welcome the participation of Iran in this briefing, since Iran is a party to the JCPOA and directly affected by Resolution 2231. Iran's early ratification of the additional protocol would be an important confidence-building measure. It's very important to respect both sides of the deal. The procurement channel must be kept functioning, and the Joint Commission should continue to discuss any outstanding issues under the agreement. It is also important that the Iranian people continue to experience the economic benefits of the deal. The US withdrawal and the reimposition of sanctions is therefore regrettable. We fully support the efforts within the European Union to protect and preserve the JCPOA in all its aspects. Mr. President, like many others, we continue to express our serious concerns over ballistic missile activity that is inconsistent with Annex B of Security Council Resolution 2231, including the most recent test on the 1st of December. This matter, however, should be addressed separately and not at the expense of the JCPOA. Iran must heed the Council's call and refrain from any actions which put its commitment to Resolution 2231 in doubt. All parties must contribute to further de-escalation in the region. Regarding other alleged transfers and possible arms shipments, we thank the Secretariat for its thorough analysis and reporting so far in relation to the information at hand, and we appreciate the updates today by the Under-Secretary General Di Carlo, and we look forward to further analysis as appropriate in due course. Mr. President, as our term on this Council comes to an end, we note that divisions in the region remain deep, to the detriment of international peace and security both in the region and beyond. And we believe that the Council should intensify efforts to bridge those divides. All actors in the region must now come together to de-escalate tensions and make common efforts towards political solutions to ongoing conflicts and crises in the region. It's also crucial to continue the important political dialogue with Iran on its role in the region, as well as on the human rights situation in the country. We will continue this dialogue through our established channels, including through the European Union. In conclusion, Mr. President, at a time when multilateralism is often described as under pressure, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action remains a model of successful multilateral negotiation and reaffirms the principle of peaceful settlement of disputes under the Charter for our common good as the norm. It is important to hold on to it. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Merci. Je dis merci au représentant de la
Suède. The representative of Sweden.
Je passe à présent la parole au représentant du Koweït.
Representative of Kuwait.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. في البداية أود أن أضم صوتي لمن سبقوني في الترحيب.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to express my thanks to the Secretary of State, Mr. Pompeo. I would like also to express my thanks to Mrs. Mary DiCarlo, the Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs, on her comprehensive briefing concerning the sixth-month report of the Secretary General on the implementation of Resolution 2231. I would also like to thank the facilitator for the implementation of Resolution 2231, as well as the representative of the European Union on behalf of the Joint Commission on their briefings to the Council. 3 years ago, Kuwait welcomed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and the subsequent adoption by the Security Council of Resolution 2231. Indeed, the agreement does not address all the concerns of the countries in the region, where security conditions continue to deteriorate and whose domestic affairs continue to be interfered with. However, we welcomed the agreement as we always stand ready to support UN resolutions, efforts and endeavors seeking to achieve security and stability in the Middle East region, and also in light of our principled and firm position vis-à-vis all the issues of non-proliferation in general and for a Middle East free of weapons of mass destruction in particular. We took note of the sixth report of the Secretary General developed under the provisions of Annex B2 Resolution 2231, which gives an overview of the nuclear, ballistic missile and weapons regulations and the measures aiming to strengthen the implementation of the resolution. We welcome the reported continued implementation by Iran of its commitments as verified by the International Atomic Energy Agency. We reiterate that Iran should stay on this positive course and continue to fulfill its commitments according to the Non-Proliferation Treaty and the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement concluded with the IAEA. Meanwhile, the early ratification by Iran of the additional protocol would guarantee that it continues to maintain its status as a non-nuclear state. Mr. President, the provisions of Resolution 2231 are not limited to the nuclear aspect only, but transcend that to control activities related to ballistic missiles technologies and the transfer of traditional weapons. In this regard, we are concerned about the continued launching of ballistic missiles at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as per the report. The report also mentions transfers of military weapons and equipment and material to other countries in the region. The Secretariat couldn't verify the date of transfer of the mentioned weapons and continues to investigate the same. However, this issue remains one of heightened seriousness and threatens international peace and security. In this context, Kuwait condemns the launch of ballistic missiles at the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is recurrent, thus threatening its national security. and jeopardizes the lives of civilians. We also stress our firm position, which calls for the preservation of security and stability in the region and the safety of its peoples. It is important also not to interfere in the domestic affairs of countries and to respect the sovereignty thereof in accordance with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, international law, the principles of neighborliness, and to settle disputes by peaceful means and to refrain from the use of force or the threat thereof. In conclusion, Kuwait reaffirms that the Security Council should continue to shoulder its responsibility and follow up the implementation of Resolution 2231 in a comprehensive manner that guarantees the compliance by Iran and other states with their commitments, not only in the sphere of nuclear non-proliferation, but also the other aspects contained in the resolution. And before concluding, I would take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Ambassador Karl van Ostrom in his capacity as facilitator for the implementation of Resolution 2231 and the members of his mission for the efforts they made during the past year, and we wish them and the country continued success in all their endeavors. Thank you, Mr. President.
Merci.
I think the representative of Kuwait. I now give the floor to the representative of China.
Mr. President, first of all, I thank USG Di Carlo and Ambassador Van Oosterom for their briefings. I welcome the presence and coming to the meeting of Secretary General Pompeo. The JCPOA, as a multilateral agreement endorsed by the Security Council resolution, has the effect of international law. And as an important achievement of multilateralism, it is in the common interest of the international community. It is playing a significant role in upholding the international nuclear non-proliferation regime and maintaining peace and stability in the Middle East. It also serves as a model for addressing international and regional hotspot issues by diplomatic means. Despite the abrupt changes in the situation in the past 6 months, the current participants to the JCPOA, with a sense of responsibility, continue to focus on implementing the agreement while maintaining normal economic and trade cooperation with Iran, and have received broad support from the international community. The IEA has confirmed Iran's compliance with its nuclear-related commitments under the JCPOA for 13 times consecutively. And the coordination between the Council and the procurement channel functions normally. Practice has proved that the JCPOA is an effective agreement and needs to be fully and effectively implemented. Mr. President, currently, the implementation of the JCPOA is at a critical juncture. China appreciates Iran's efforts to implement resolution and the JCPOA and hopes that Iran can continue its implementation and the other participants will continue to fulfill their commitments. China regrets the withdrawal of the United States from the JCPOA and its subsequent decision to reimpose sanctions and calls on all parties to work on a proper solution to the difficulties faced in maintaining normal economic and trade cooperation with Iran. We believe that all parties concerned need to proceed from the overall long-term interests, adhere to multilateralism, uphold multilateral agreements, fulfill their due responsibilities and obligations, and facilitate a steady and sustained implementation of Resolution 2231 and the JCPOA. Mr. President, the Secretary General's report emphasizes the need for all the parties to adhere to multilateralism, cooperate in responding to challenges, and work together to preserve the JCPOA. It supports the initiatives of the JCPOA participants to protect the freedom to conduct lawful trade with Iran in accordance with Resolution 2231 and calls on all parties to support the procurement channel. China expressed its appreciation for these elements. At the same time, China also believes that the SG's report should be balanced and objective. It should comprehensively reflect the implementation of the resolution and fully address Iran's legitimate concerns. The Secretariat needs to strictly act on its mandate and functions to avoid including unverified elements into the report. Under the current circumstances, the parties should exercise caution in dealing with the missile launches of Iran and accurately interpret the resolution of the Security Council. Iran has several times stated that it has no intention to develop nuclear weapons, and its missiles are not designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons. And China commends Ambassador Van Oosterom and his team for the efforts they have made as facilitator of the 2231 format. China has taken note of the recent report submitted to the Council by the Joint Commission on the work of the Procurement Working Group and will continue to participate in the work thereof. Mr. President, China has always advocated a political and diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear issue, remains committed to consolidating the international nuclear non-proliferation regime, and maintain international and regional peace and stability. China will continue to uphold impartiality and objectivity with a strong sense of responsibility and work together with the international community in a tireless effort to uphold the JCPOA. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of China. I now give the floor to the representative of Peru.
Mr. President, first of all, we wish to hail the presence of the Secretary of State of the United States, Mr. Mike Pompeo. We express our gratitude for the convening of this meeting and are grateful for the important presentations delivered by USG Rosemary DiCarlo and the presentation delivered by Ambassadors Van Oosterom and we thank him for his work as facilitator for 2231 for this year. We are also grateful for the presentation by the representative of the European Union. In line with its commitment to multilateralism, international law, and non-proliferation regimes for weapons of mass destruction, Peru attaches the utmost importance to compliance with and the implementation of Resolution 2231 of 2015, pursuant to which this Council endorsed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, on the Iranian nuclear program. We believe that this instrument and the subsequent monitoring and verification regime is proof of the value of multilateralism and diplomacy, the value that those things have for the peaceful resolution of international disputes and for the maintenance of international peace and security. Therefore, this regime should be maintained. Turning now to the sixth report of the Secretary General, we wish to hail the progress made with the implementation of the JCPO. And in this connection, we underscore the monitoring work undertaken by the IAEA. Once again, the agency has verified that Iran has complied and is complying with all provisions of this instrument, including the additional protocol of the Safeguards Agreement. However, we must express our concern at alleged violations of paragraph 2 of Annex B of Resolution 2231 regarding the supply, sale, transfer, or exportation of dual-use items, material, equipment, and goods. We underscore the need to ensure strict compliance with all the restrictive measures contained in Annex B. These include transfers related to nuclear energy, ballistic missiles, and arms from or to Iran, as well as provisions related to asset freezes and travel bans. In connection with these restrictive measures and in connection with the arms embargo imposed by this Council for the conflict in Yemen, we must also express our concern at the alleged transfers to Houthi rebels in this country of ballistic missiles manufactured by Iran, components thereof, and related technology. We encourage Iranian authorities to consider and to work to carefully alleviate these concerns in order to foster greater trust in their readiness to uphold their international commitments and obligations. In so doing, the Iranian authorities will foster new dynamics which will make it possible to build peace in the Middle East. In this vein, we agree with the vision of the Secretary General regarding regarding the need to tackle questions which are not directly related to the JCPOA without prejudice to preserving this instrument and its accomplishments. At this juncture, and in line with the third paragraph of Annex B of Resolution 2231, we wish to urge the Iranian authorities to not to undertake any activity related to ballistic missiles designed to launch nuclear weapons, including launches which use this ballistic missile technology. In our view, it is of the utmost importance that the Iranian authorities act with prudence and moderation, bearing in mind that the development of its ballistic missile program is perceived as an act of provocation and or as an escalation of an arms race able to increase tensions in a particularly volatile region. I would conclude, Mr. President, by underscoring the importance of ensuring that this Council stands united regarding its responsibility to guarantee the full implementation of the JCPOA and Resolution 2231. It must do so in order to ensure that the non-proliferation regime remains in force and to maintain international peace and security. Many thanks.
I thank the representative of Peru. I now give the floor to the representative of Kazakhstan.
Just want to switch gears here. This is outside the courtroom. Michael Cohen, a lawyer who made his career protecting President Donald Trump, is set to learn whether or not his decision to cooperate with federal investigators will lessen his punishment for crimes, including making illegal hush money payments to 2 women during the 2016 campaign, a scandal that could damage Trump's presidency. Cohen said nothing to reporters as he arrived at court for his sentencing, where U.S. District Judge William Pauley III is set to decide whether the attorney will get leniency or years in prison for campaign finance violations, tax evasion, and lying to Congress about the president's past business dealings in Russia. Under federal sentencing guidelines, Cohen, who is 52, stands to get about 4 years in prison, but his lawyers have argued for his leniency. Some of Cohen's crimes, they said, were motivated by over-enthusiasm for Trump, rather than any nefarious intent. He has pleaded guilty to misleading Congress about his work on a proposal to build a Trump skyscraper in Moscow, hiding the fact that he continued to speak with Russians about the proposal well into the presidential campaign. Cohen also pleaded guilty in August to breaking campaign finance laws by helping orchestrate payments to silence former Playboy model Karen McDougal and adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who said they had sexual encounters with Trump while he was married. Daniels' outspoken lawyer Michael Avenatti also turned up for Cohen's sentencing. Avenatti represented Daniels in a legal dispute with Cohen, in which she sought to be released from an agreement prohibiting her from talking about the alleged affair. Avenatti has bashed Cohen for months on cable television, saying Trump's ex-lawyer deserves to go to prison. Meanwhile, Cohen looked relaxed as he sat in court awaiting the proceeding. occasionally looking at papers on the table in front of him. So this is live in New York City outside the federal courthouse where Michael Cohen's sentencing is underway. Received word that the defense has concluded and special counsel's office is speaking currently. So this is right outside the courthouse. They're waiting for him to come out, but you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter and follow along with us as we track this. I am going to conclude today's news now. You can check us out tonight on our broadcast 5, 6, 10, and 11, and thank you for watching.